Hello and welcome to the Quick News Daily Podcast, where we give you the news, no fluff, no filler, just the real news that matters to you. Today is June 4th, and there were some notable developments late last evening and right after I recorded the episode, so let's get into that right away. The most notable being former Defense Secretary James Mattis writing a piece in The Atlantic calling Trump a danger to our country and the Constitution. A lot of people, including myself, have been wondering, when is Jim Mattis going to speak out? Because you could clearly tell that he had his disagreements with the president, and he resigned in protest in December of 2018. It's crazy that I don't even remember what that scandal was about. I am guessing it was about the caravan, though. Remember that made-up caravan where Trump had to send the troops to the border to stop, and nothing happened? Well, actually, we tear-gassed them too, so... But I guess looking back at it, I'm going to guess that Mattis had a couple of things. Someone from The Atlantic was on Morning Joe this morning talking about the process to try to persuade Mattis to write something publicly, but Mattis had a reluctance because it's just not standard procedure. No one speaks out against a president, no one from the administration speaks out. It's just a norm. But everyone on Morning Joe is saying Trump has benefited so much from norms and just people relying on them, while he himself goes around like a bull in a china shop with norms and just throws them out the window. Doesn't even care or give a second thought to them. So it's fitting that norms are being broken in order to caution people of Trump. This whole parade was started earlier in the week by former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mike Mullen that was really attacking Trump's decision to tear gas those protesters for a photo op in front of a church. Just such a blatant political stunt, and the use of force against peaceful protesters, which is just unheard of. And it happened outside the White House. It's supposed to be sacred ground. It's supposed to be presidential, the leader of the nation. And then that's the signal that he's sending. Also yesterday, as part of the parade of former military officials speaking out, current Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Milley released publicly a memo stating that we have a duty to the Constitution, to the citizens, and that we shouldn't be using illegal force against citizens of our own country. So it didn't mention Trump by name, but it was clearly a shot across the bow. And yet another prominent figure, current Defense Secretary Mark Esper, stated that he does not support the Insurrection Act, which Trump would use to order active duty troops to be used against civilians to quell these protests. So really a big day for people speaking out against the president. And looking back on it personally, it makes sense that Jim Mattis waited this long to say something because he really only had one shot at this. He could really only come out so forcefully once and have it make an impact, and I guess he felt he waited until it would really matter, until it really pertained to the military. I wish it would have happened during impeachment so that maybe we could have avoided all of this, because as sad as it is, I think Mike Pence would have done a better job at all of this and wouldn't have threatened multiple times to shoot unarmed U.S. civilians. A further example of this abuse of power that all these military officials are speaking out against is William Barr ordering all of these government agencies to go beyond their normal mandates in order to surveil and investigate crimes happening during the protests, so the rioting and the looting, ostensibly. He issued an authorization lasting for 14 days, which allows the DEA to conduct covert surveillance, that's a quote, and share intelligence with state and local officials, as well as patrolling public places to make arrests for non-drug crimes, which is, again, beyond the DEA's usual mandate. They are for drug enforcement. That's what the D and the E stand for. So this use of them to surveil, it's just something you see in a banana republic or one of those countries having a civil war, or Russia, China. It's insane that it's happening in the United States, and it is just really concerning, and sometimes you just feel like you don't recognize the world you live in anymore. It's truly amazing what Trump has done in order to try to keep power or look tough or take back the streets or whatever he tries to brand it as. And like I said, William Barr needs to go. He should have resigned. He should have never been confirmed. He has done nothing but lie and act as the personal attorney and enforcer. Kind of sounds like Michael Cohen, who went to prison for doing the very same thing for Donald Trump in the private sector. So William Barr really better watch himself, and I really don't know what he gains by all of this. But I don't see how he doesn't face some extreme extreme legal consequences. In good news that I hope may take down the temperature a little bit of all the protests, although they are almost exclusively peaceful and it's just certain bad actors, even right-wing groups, trying to act like they're in the protests to make the protests look bad. That's a funny story because they're called the Boogaloo Boys, which literally comes from Civil War II Electric Boogaloo. Like, that's what they're trying to push, and they dress in Hawaiian shirts. It's insane, but they are investigating them as well. But back to the officers. The remaining 3 Minneapolis police officers, J. Alexander King, Thomas Lane, and Tu Tao, were all charged by Attorney General Keith Ellison for aiding and abetting second-degree murder and aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. Primary murderer Derek Chauvin also had his charge adjusted. It was upgraded to second-degree murder from third-degree murder, and the significance of that is that it turns a maximum 25-year sentence into a potentially 40-year maximum sentence if convicted. There's some concern out there that this may be a high bar and juries would be unwilling to hand down such a strict punishment, especially for a police officer who juries just do treat differently because they're seen as pillars of the community, as truthful, and you don't want to second guess them because you don't know what it's like to be in that moment. But in this case, we do have the video to show that there was no threat to his life. It was not deserved to be standing on his neck for almost 9 minutes. So finally, some more justice is being carried out, it seems, at the moment. One thing that's just worrying me on a personal level is that all of this really is distracting from the coronavirus. It didn't stop, it's not gone, it doesn't care about what kind of cause we're fighting for. It will keep persisting. And obviously, I do think these protests had to take place. They just had to. And it is worth risking all of this exposure because if we don't, then how many more people die from police violence? So again, a necessary evil, but if you're not protesting and you're still going out and about, just please do not forget that Corona is still out there, waiting in the shadows, silently. So please, just be vigilant, be cautious, and don't give up social distancing just yet. Please still be careful. One of the more moving things I've seen today is happening as we speak. Reverend Al Sharpton was giving the eulogy at the funeral in Minneapolis for George Floyd. The Reverend was definitely at his best. He was at the top of his game. Who knows if he's ever off his game. But the most powerful demonstration was at the very end. Everyone stood for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And the pain of it was you realize how brutally long that 8 minutes and 46 seconds is. It just felt like it was taking forever. And can you imagine not breathing for that long? My goodness. I just look at everyone in attendance, his family, friends, strangers who were moved by him. And I think it's just so sad how in the alleged best country in the world, we still have to fight for basic human rights. We have this police force that, and I'm sorry for anyone who works there who's good and the spouses and families of those good cops, but we have a real problem with power going to their head, hiding behind the shield, acting like it's a license for violence and killing. And speaking now directly to my Midwest listeners, my fellow Midwest listeners, please seek out all forms of news on what's happening with the protests. The riots and the looting are trying to become the most powerful story about all of this, but look up all the incidents of police violence that's happening. Targeting unarmed people 100% of the time without provocation. Journalists getting caught in the crossfire. So much so that when a police officer bashed an Australian cameraman as he was filming, the Australian Prime Minister is now looking at pressing charges against that officer, and I really hope he does. I just don't know if I feel safe anymore being guarded by these people. I know I probably shouldn't have any reason to worry as a white male, but if you look at the events of this week, it looks like it doesn't matter. They're attacking everyone. They're going after everyone with batons. I saw a video of 3 cops taking a guy behind a wall so that they thought they would be safe from prying eyes and cell phones and beat the crap out of him. Luckily, someone did have a cell phone on them, and I hope we figure out who they are. You have one group of police in Asheville, North Carolina, who destroyed a medic tent, basically an impromptu set-up medic tent staffed with real EMTs sanctioned by the city, and the police came in and destroyed all their supplies and their station, and intentionally destroying and targeting medical personnel is internationally recognized as a war crime. If this was a war, they would be committing a war crime. Just like using a chemical agent on peaceful protesters, tear gas is a chemical agent that is illegal in war. It is a war crime what Trump did. You shouldn't be able to do this and get away with it. You just shouldn't. And that's the whole problem here so far. So circling back to the main point, Midwest fellow listeners, Our local news does not do a great job of presenting both sides. They try to say they are, but they're all owned by Sinclair, which is a Trump-supporting company, so they don't really give you the balanced news. If Twitter didn't exist, I don't know what would happen, because we wouldn't be able to see as many videos as we do see the real truth, so be careful. Alright, I think that's it for the news today. There's a lot going on all the time nowadays, so thank you for sticking with me, and I hope we're helping change the news and bring it up to the 21st century and report accurately. If I could ask you to do one or two things here. I have an article published in Medium right now. It's called Coronavirus, America's Chernobyl. It's on my Facebook for sure, and I have tweeted it out as well. So if you could go read that and share it if you like it, I'll be very appreciative. I'm also going to have another one coming out about police unions, in quotes, because they're more like the NRA, so be on the lookout for that, and if you like that, could you share that as well? I'll be very, very appreciative. I know there's a lot of worthy causes out there, especially this week with focus on Black businesses and initiatives, and I think that is very, very important. But if you're in the position and you're looking to donate to another organization and you'd like to help cover this show's costs, I am on Patreon and PayPal. The links will be in the show notes here, in the description. Any donation helps. There are the tiers on Patreon where you get certain benefits when you subscribe at a certain level. And PayPal does not allow that for regular accounts, like to set up different tiers, but the same rules stand. So depending on the amount of money you give, you can tell me what package you want to be at. Like if the cost can be 6 months of one package or a year of another, you can choose between those two. Perfectly okay. Mixing it up. Again, anything does help, and we appreciate you so very much. With that, stay safe, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.